Hi, my name is Jay Shepard. Welcome to this video. So what we're going to do is work on some of the first things that a classical guitar player would want to know about the right hand. And involved in these activities, we need to spend a little bit of time talking about position and just the posture that one must be in to play the guitar effectively. So the first thing you have to know about the classical guitar is that you need like a footstool like this or something to put your left leg up on a little higher so it can get off the ground or get much higher than your right leg. Also, I tend to like put my right leg a little kind of towards the right side, kind of pointing my knee that way. So that way when I have the guitar resting on my left leg that's propped up on the stool, I get this kind of angle of the neck that kind of goes up, and it's not like this way, right? But like the neck kind of has this up and down to it. And what I'm looking for is if I can see like the first fret on the guitar kind of eye level, that's typically where I like to keep that, okay? So try to find that position for a little bit where you can get it all, eye level like this. Some people still kind of have it too much like this, so I would encourage you to try to get more of the body of the guitar lower, closer to the ground, and make more space with the right leg, towards the right side. That way there's plenty of room to go down with the guitar and find this position. It's very important that you find this kind of position. The other aspect of this is the weight of the right arm as it approaches the guitar. One thing you can do is take your pointer finger and just move it towards the highest string and put the fingertip of that pointer finger on that high string, and then relax the weight of your arm and just let it sit on the guitar like that. That will kind of help find a good balance. Another activity to find that is take the weight of the thumb, put it on the low E string, the biggest string, and relax your arm. And then maybe also take your pointer finger and put it on this high E string, and then relax the weight of your arm. The ultimate test that you've got this position and this posturing right is that your left hand can be completely free. You could point, to somebody or wave high or whatever, and you never feel like the guitar is going to go away or move. So really, as we work on these right hand exercises, it's very important that you maintain this very consistent, secure feeling position where the left hand is not involved at all. In fact, if you'd like to just hang it to the side for all these activities, or put it like on your left leg, just to not keep it, might be keep it on the left leg if you feel like the guitar is going to fall off of you, but it won't. Just take your time and really find the weight of the right arm and let it relax into the guitar, okay? So you may want to practice that. Just taking your foot off the footstool, putting the left foot on, getting the guitar in that position, finding those 2 points, then relaxing the weight of your arm onto the guitar. Now I can feel the weight of the guitar pressing against 3 points. The left leg, the right leg a bit lower, and then kind of on my chest. And those 3 points of contact are what keep the classical guitar very secure and give you a feeling of security, which will translate into your fingers. Once you have that feeling of security and that relaxation built into the posture and the positioning of the instrument, you'll have free fingers to do what you need to do, because the instrument requires quick fingers, very fine skills, very small motions, as we'll discover. So the first type of stroke we're going to learn on the classical guitar is something called a rest stroke. If you've ever played the bass guitar, you probably already know what a rest stroke is. Maybe you just haven't heard the term. So really what a rest stroke is, I'll do this in steps, and I'll just demonstrate the mechanic before I show you any exercises or music. The first thing you want to do is place the thumb on the low E string. We're going to move this here in a little bit. But place this thumb on the low E string and kind of like let it just sit there and rest there. Now take your first finger and put the tip of it right on the high E string. Now, one thing I want you to try before we try to pluck through the string is put some weight of your fingertip on the E string and kind of push down into the guitar. That'll help you feel the weight of the string kind of pushing back. Another thing about the weight of that string, depending where you pluck through the string, on the length of the string, notice the tension of the string changes. The closer you are to the end of the string, near the bridge, the tighter the tension is. The closer you are towards the middle of the string, around the 12th fret, that is a little looser. And depending where you pluck, you're going to get a different sound. But for now, see if we can keep all of our strokes this side of the rosette, the nice little decorative hole around the decorative little painted thing around the sound hole. Keep it on this side so we get a little bit more string tension that we can use to our advantage to make a louder sound. Okay, so we've got our thumb placed on the sixth string, below string, just for security. And what we're going to do now is we're going to press down into the first string with the first finger, and then let the finger pass through the string and the string release, and then the finger will stop on the next string. I'll demonstrate it a few times slowly. Couple more little tips that will help you. If you can imagine on these rest strokes that your fingers are have like popsicle sticks, and they're like kind of splinted, like straight and extended. That's kind of what you want. You want a real long extended finger to rest, pass through and rest on the B string on the next string. Try the same motion with your middle finger now. Another good thing to look for when you're practicing the rest stroke is not only keeping the finger straight like a popsicle stick, but letting the tip of the finger kind of brush backwards and kind of flex back as it puts pressure on the string. You want that to know that the tip of the finger is relaxed, to guarantee that you're not plucking like this with the finger right now. The rest stroke motion needs to come primarily from the big knuckle, as you'll see again. Then even with the middle finger. A final note that's very important with this stroke is when I make contact with the string with the pad of my finger before I go through it. See, there's a little moment that you can hear the string stop vibrating. To establish that for security. If you have nails like me, so like I play with nails that are sort of like extensions of the pad of my finger, and then they're shaped to essentially extend the pad of my finger, and I keep the nails, the inside, the edges, and the outside very smooth with like a nail buffer, and that's kind of like what creates the tone for people that play with nails. If you're just starting on the classical guitar, I'd actually recommend that you try to play without nails for several months or even half a year or more until you really can find the strength of volume of the sound and learn to make good sounds on the guitar on this side of the rosette where the string tension really helps you pull more sound out of the guitar. Okay, so this first exercise that we're going to work on is going to feature a rest stroke, and we're going to pick a tempo to start with. After all, we're playing music, so we need some kind of beat. And I think a goal tempo for these exercises would maybe 120 beats a minute, but we're going to slow down to 60 beats a minute. So essentially, the beat is like 1 second long, every single beat. And I'm also going to put on a subdivision of an eighth note, so that way, instead of just hearing 1, 2, 3, 4, We're here 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and right. So I'm going to do that. So there's our tempo. Now I'm going to, on this exercise, I'm going to use just the rest strokes. So we're focused on going through the string to the next string where our finger comes at rest. The tips of the fingers are bending back. We have the straight extended fingers, and our thumb is going to just kind of sit here on the low E string while we do these. So first the E string, I'll give you 4 and we'll play 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so what we need to do now is do it again and notice the alternation of the fingers. So I'm playing index, middle, index, middle, index. And then on that first rest on B2 of every other measure, I'm planting the next finger. That way the string sound stops right with the rest. You can think of it, notes create sound, rest creates silence. We have to create that silence in the technique to stop the string from ringing, just as we prepare to play it again. Let's try this one more time. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, and 4. 1. Good, we'll do it one more time, and there's really 2 things happening during the rest. Obviously, with the first rest, we need to stop the string from ringing, but then we get 2 more rest of quarter note rest, 2 more beats to prepare the next string. So you'll see me stop the old string and then move to the new string before it's time to play it again. All right, here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4. You may have noticed that the last string I played, the G string, one of the strikes was not quite as full or loud as the other ones. That's the thing you want to work on these rest strokes. You want a very even sound, very full, big sound. You're not going to find a bigger tone on the classical guitar other than this rest stroke. So really kind of practice it a lot. That way it gets in your ear. And that's the kind of tone that you are expecting to come out of the guitar no matter what stroke you use. All right, let's try the bass strings now, and we'll do the rest stroke with the thumb. So on these, the first, second, and third finger, or I, M, and A. I is index, middle is the M, and then A, the third finger, is Spanish for annular, the third ring finger on the right hand. So what we want to do is we're going to put those fingers, just like we planted the thumb. Each one of these fingers kind of has a spot to stay at while we work playing the thumb. And we're going to keep the index finger on the G string, the third string, the middle finger on the B string, and then the third finger on the high E string. And then those are going to help be our security while we use the thumb on these exercises. Now, the way I like to play the thumb with the rest stroke is to kind of dig into the string like I did on the finger, kind of pushing down into the string, and then I just follow through the thumb until it stops on the next string above. So here I'll play this example for you once. 1, 2, 3, 4. notice following through, I get a really big tone out of the thumb. And notice I'm really moving the thumb from like the big knuckle, just like on the fingers. I'm not doing any of this kind of hitchhikery thing. I'm just straight thumb and using this big muscle to move the thumb through while the other three fingers sit on the respective treble strings, okay? Let's try this again. So also notice I mute during the first rest, and then I take the next two rests to kind of migrate and plant and get ready for the next string. Those are very important activities as you practice this. Let's try the rest stroke again. 1, 2, 3, 4. So those are the rest strokes. The big ideas is make sure the rest stroke sounds really good. You're working on tone, you're working on following through and kind of pushing the string kind of into the guitar, whether it's the thumb or the fingers alternating on the treble strings. And you just want to create the biggest, warmest, smoothest sound that you can out of that. So take a little bit of time, take 5 or 10 minutes before you go to the next example, and work on the rest stroke and building a really solid, kind of fundamental tone that's a very big, very loud, very even in terms of the tone and the volume, and also even with the metronome, 60 beats a minute. If you have trouble getting to 60 beats a minute, you may try to back off and try like 40 beats a minute. That's completely fine, okay? So after you get done with that, we'll move on to the next item, which is talking about free strokes. So a free stroke is a little different from a rest stroke. A free stroke is actually not going to come to rest on the next string, but actually we're just going to kind of miss the next string. Free strokes are important because guitar is a polyphonic instrument, potentially, which means it can play more than one note at the same time. And if we're following through on one string and stopping on the next, the act of stopping on the next string could interrupt the string from ringing and stop the string. So we want to be able to have the possibility to miss that. Now, one problem with free strokes I've noticed is most beginners and people that start, they don't sound as good as the rest stroke. But I will tell you, with lots of practice, you can indeed make the free stroke sound real strong like the rest stroke. And that's why practicing the rest stroke, in my opinion, is a really big key to getting a good sounding free stroke. That way you have something to compare it to. So another thing with a free stroke that you're going to find, depending where your thumb is, if you're using your fingers, it's going to feel a little different. So we're going to practice this next example a few different ways because of that. But before we go to that, let's practice and just talk through what a good free stroke should look and sound like. So I want to press down into the string, push the string towards the top of the guitar, just like I would on the rest stroke. But then when I release it, instead of falling through to the next string and bending back, I'm going to allow the tip of the finger to bend a little bit so it misses, but I'm going to kind of still release the energy the same way I did on the rest stroke. And you'll know if you're doing it right by how it sounds. You really got to push down into the string and then kind of like lift off of it and let that energy sort of come out of the guitar. Let's plant our thumb on the 6th string and let's alternate index and middle and play 5 free strokes on the high E. 1, 2, ready, and... Notice the first one wasn't quite as loud. I really needed to dig more in. This mechanic of the free stroke is not quite as efficient as the rest stroke. So you'll need to put in more effort and energy, but also make sure that the tone is never shrill. And the way you do that is really pushing into the string, which is opposite of just kind of clawing up on the string. That's the worst sound you can make, like this. See how tinny that sounds? If I push into the string first and then release it, I can still get a big sound out of my free stroke that sounds almost as good as the rest stroke. And that's what we're going to shoot for. All right, let's try the free stroke on the E string with the metronome, and then move to the B and the G, just like we did the rest stroke, but free stroke, so we have to miss the next string. 1, 2, and ready, big sound. Now, if you had an accident, most time people are going to like accidentally also play the next lowest string at the same time. You may get a sound like this. Oops. You have both strings. So that just means you're moving a little bit too far this way. And think about moving a little more down into the string and straight up out of the way as opposed to coming lower through the string. Let's do the same exercise and plant the thumb on the 5th string, the A string this time, and see if it feels a little different. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4. You even heard me hit the D string on that last, second to last G note there. So, I need to work on it a little bit more maybe. And then lastly, I'm going to put the thumb on the D string and we'll do the same thing. 1, 2, 3, 4. So the thing that I've learned over the years is when my thumb is closer to the fingers in terms of the spacing, I have a bit more control of the fine kind of motor skills of my fingers. So you may have found when your thumb was on the 4th string, you had a little bit more control over the tone and the exact movements of that free stroke, okay? All right, now we're going to plant our fingers on the treble strings, the respective ones. So index finger back on the G string, middle finger resting back on the B string, and the ring finger resting on the high E. And now we're going to play free strokes with the thumb, just like the last time with the rest stroke, but this time the thumb will play a free stroke. And the motion that you really want to see on this is when the thumb plays like the D string, for instance, it will immediately turn to a position that it can be played again. So instead of resting and hanging out on the next string, like on the rest stroke, we're going to go through the string and just immediately come back and prepare to play it again. So in tempo, that motion might look something like this. Something like that. All right, let's try the exercise. Here we go. Count it off. 1, 2, 3, 4. One thing you may have saw is that muting, and on the rest, I hit the thumb and muted it, and then I migrated to the next string before I had to play it. These little acts of preparation in the right hand are absolutely crucial to improving every day with the feel of the instrument and getting a real feel of the instrument in terms of the right hand, where we don't have to look at that. Really, if you want to have your eyes and your facilities, you want them focused on maybe some music or something that you're learning and not being stuck on the guitar, especially the right hand, where we can learn to feel everything that we need to feel over these 6 strings with the 4 fingers that we play with, the thumb, which is P, I, M, and A. We want to really be able to feel those 6 strings in that space, and each finger know where it's at all the time. That can be developed. Now, some of the movements that we'll see in the left hand later may take a bit more of your visual resources. So that's really what you want to save those for, is things in the left hand. Okay, we've done rest strokes. We've done free strokes. Now I want to show you kind of like a third stroke, okay? And what this one is really good for, in my opinion, is kind of finding a transition to help people find better tone with their free strokes, but make them feel more like the rest strokes. It's kind of like a training wheels, like on a bicycle. You know, we learn to ride with 3 wheels before you take the training wheels off, and then you go on 2. So this is kind of like a nice little transition to that. So the way that you play this third stroke, I'm going to call it, is you're going to keep your thumb on whatever string is right next or adjacent below the one that you're playing. So if I'm going to play the high E string first here, I'm going to be sure the thumb is just resting on the B string. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to pretend that my thumb is kind of like a target for a rest stroke. So when the finger goes through, it'll bend back like the rest stroke on the tip, very elongated finger, but it'll kind of come to rest on the thumb, which will be out of the way of the path of the next string. And you can do that with your index or your middle finger or your ring finger. I learned to get a really good tone using this stroke. Really kind of like makes the distance very controllable because the thumb is so close to the fingers. So let's try this third stroke down the guitar. And when we get to the last string, because there's not really a string below the 6th string, the lowest string, I'm just going to keep my thumb kind of on the rosette, and that'll be good enough to kind of make it a fake string for the thumb. You know, so the finger will come through on the thumb the same way, but I'll just have to move it off the 6th string before the finger plays the 6th string. Okay, here is the third stroke exercise. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4. Off the guitar. All right, so you'll want that to work through that stroke a bit and be sure that you get real loud and pure sounds that sound like that rest stroke. Right? We're going to use that rest stroke and kind of hold that sound as like the target sound that we want to create on the guitar. And if you do that, you'll find your tone getting very good, very fast. Okay, the next 10 examples are all concerned with playing what's called arpeggios. And arpeggios are simply, on the guitar in terms of a technique, or just when we play individual free strokes on the guitar for the most part. We do free strokes and playing at different times. So just one note at a time. And typically we'll let these notes just kind of ring into each other until we see a rest to make them cut off. Now these, any example that you see, which is the thumb, index, and middle, typically the thumb will play not just the 3 bass strings, but often we'll go up to play the G string as well. And in this example, that is what is going on. Now, there's a couple things that you'll want to see you'll see during the rest I have this instruction that says mute, prepare. And that is just a reminder that when you play those 3 notes with the right hand, you want to silence them all at the same time. So you'll plant the fingers back down on those strings during the rest, and then you will, in this example, move the thumb to its next string before the next measure begins, okay? Let me play this one through so you can see how it would go. Here we go. And 1, 2, 3, 4. Now, one thing you may have heard is even when I touched the strings that I played, you may have still heard some ringing after I cut them off. And that's because there are other strings making what's called sympathetic vibrations. Each string has these things called harmonics that can be created by just lightly touching over a string in some like a whole number fraction of the strings. We have an open string 1 to 1, 1/2 or 1 to 2 is at the 12th fret, 1 to 4 would be at the 5th fret, and so on. But what you'll see is if any of those harmonic notes line up with these open strings that we're playing, it'll make that other one kind of vibrate or feed back, if you will, and you'll hear that. Let's try this first arpeggio example together one more time. Here we are. 1, 2, ready, and. And keep working that until you can really feel a strong sound. And don't forget to play this side of the rosette. That way the string tension is plenty tight and you can get a lot of energy off the string. Okay, the next example is sort of the same thing, but the order of the fingers are different. So instead of thumb, index, middle, we've got thumb, middle, index, or PMI. Here's this example. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, and. Now don't forget to use those rests to mute the sound on that rest on beat 4, and then also use that entire measure to feel the next 3 notes that you need in the right hand for the following measure. That means moving that thumb and making sure the fingers are already planted on their respective strings that they're going to play. It's a very important aspect of getting good fast early on. All right. The next example is a little bit of a different pattern. So just going one direction, we're going to go kind of up and down, back and forth. So the pattern this time will be P, I, M, I, P, plant. So we'll get the rest there and then prepare for the next one. So we get a little less time to prepare the fingers between the rest. So this one is a little tougher, but you'll get it nonetheless. Here we go. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4. Prepare. that one goes by a little quicker because we have less time to prepare, but you will find it, no doubt. All right, let's do one more with the fingers. There's just the two fingers and the thumb, rather, okay? So this one is going to be kind of an advanced one. I'll explain it a little bit slower. So on the first line of this exercise, and plus a note, we always want to use the free stroke, well, you want to follow the instructions for every bass note. Let's go over them very carefully. So the first measure, notice I've got free stroke with the thumb, because if I were to rest stroke with the thumb and then try to play the index finger with the B string, on the B string, it wouldn't ring because the thumb would be resting on it. So I will have to do a free stroke to keep them all ringing for that first measure, right? Now notice on the next measure, it says rest stroke with the thumb. Now the reason we can do this is because we're playing the B and the E again with the fingers, but the thumb, by following through, can actually stop the old G from ringing, which is a cool sound. Then you rest stroke with the thumb. And then again on the A, you can rest stroke. And that stops the D, and then finally the second line, rest stroke the E. So we've got this interesting mix of free strokes with the fingers and sometimes rest strokes with the thumb, which help us cut off the old note. Now on the second line, we have another activity that we need to do. The rest strokes on our way down help us stop the old string from ringing as we play the new bass note. But the problem is when we're ascending in bass notes, the rest stroke really won't help us stop the old note. So we need to find a different technique. And what I do is I'll take like the last note of a measure and I'll use the back of the thumb, or like, so if this is the thumb, like the skin, like to the left of the nail, I'll kind of reach back. So listen to me play the first measure of the second line of this exercise and plus a bass note, so you can see the thumb go back and mute the note before I go on. And you can hear when I played that B, that last B, the back of the thumb muted the low E. And then when I played the A string, the start, the fingers planted and got ready for their movements. So there's a lot going on in this exercise. This is one you really want to take like an event at a time. Then let's connect the second measure to the third measure the same kind of way. So we'll play the A and then we'll get the back of the thumb to mute the A before we go to the D string. And then we'll do the same thing on the repeat to mute the D when we get back to the G string. So let's give this one a shot. Let's do it a bit slower so I can kind of talk to it. Here it is at 40 beats a minute. Here we go. 1 and 2 and 3. And here's a free stroke with the thumb. Here's a rest stroke with the thumb. Plant the fingers. Comes another rest stroke with the thumb. And I planted the fingers. Here's a rest stroke with the thumb. But I planted the fingers. Now I gotta mute. There it is. Mute with the back of the thumb. Plant the fingers. Here's another mute with the back of the thumb. And then at the beginning again. So that is very interesting. Notice when I play the first bass note of every measure, I'm also planting the fingers on their respective strings to keep the motion very secure. Let's try that example one more time at this tempo. 1 and 2, and 3, and thumb. Free stroke. Okay, here's a rest stroke with a thumb and a plant of the fingers. Here's another rest stroke with a thumb and a plant of the fingers. Here's another rest stroke with a thumb and plant the fingers. Okay, now I'm going to get ready to mute that bass string with the back of the thumb. There it is. Rest stroke and plant. Here comes the mute with the back of the thumb. They're back to the beginning. So that's the hardest one. Maybe it's the hardest one of all these examples. So that is going to be the ones that just use the thumb and 2 fingers. Most people are more comfortable starting with that because the A finger can be tricky, or the 3rd finger, annular, can be tricky to get a good tone with it first. So a lot of people will kind of avoid that. Let's look at the next example, which uses the A finger. So to prepare this example, what you'll want to start with is your fingers planted on their respective strings. So get the thumb planted on the D string, the index planted on the G, the middle finger planted on the B string, and then the A finger, or the 3rd finger, planted on the E string. So they're just kind of resting and ready to play. So when we get to the rest in this one, we'll want to plant all 3 fingers and the thumb on the respective strings to stop them. And then we'll want to be sure to move the thumb to its next target before we have to play. All right, here we go. Let's go ahead and move this one back up to like 60 beats a minute. Here we go. And 1, 2, ready, and plant. Now move the thumb and go. 1, 2, 3, 4. Plant. 2. Now move the thumb and 1, 2, and mute. Then plant the thumb and you can do it again. Thumb to the A and plant. Now the thumb's on the low E. Plant. Okay, so that's easy enough, but sometimes muting the strings at the same time and finding them can be kind of hard. It'll take time for that to clean up, but keep the motion really small and the volume very strong, and that will help you find it faster. Let's try this number 6. It's similar to the last one, but the pattern is different. So instead of thumb, index, middle, ring, it's thumb, ring, middle, index. Here we go. 1, 2, and ready, and all free strokes, remember here. 2, 3, 4. And you could go and repeat that one some more. Now on this number 7 example, what we're going to do is we're going to play a little bit of this kind of back and forth idea, but now it's with all 4 of the fingers we play with. Thumb, index, middle, and ring. When we get to the rest, we'll have to mute and then move to the next string and the next rest. So we have a little less time to deal with this, but we've got passed through this before. So here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4. Mute, plant. Mute, prepare. Mute, prepare again. Prepare. So that's how that one goes. Just do a few more of these. So now we're going to move back to just thumb and two fingers. But this one is going to be interesting because our fingers are going to be traveling with our thumb and playing adjacent strings the whole time. So the muting will be the same when we plant the fingers, but then we'll have to prepare three things. So not just the thumb will be preparing the new string, but we'll have to move the fingers to plant to find the next strings as well. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, and here, see it, and go. 1, 2, 3, mute, 2, 3. Mute, 2, prepare. 1, 2, 3, mute, set, prepare. 1, 2, 3, mute, and prepare. Prepare. Mute. 2. Prepare. Mute and prepare. So you get the idea of that one. Now the next one is like the same thing, but with 4 fingers. Let's give it a shot. So here we'll start with our thumb, index, middle, and ring finger all prepared on those 4 adjacent strings, and then we'll have to move all the fingers to prepare for each next event. Let's try it together. 1, 2, 3, 4. 4. And then we're at the beginning. So that exercise is one that you'll definitely want to find as well. Now the last exercise is similar, but it's a little different. Notice we're going to move the thumb around, but we're going to have a new right-hand pattern that we haven't seen before. The pattern here is thumb, middle, index, ring, or P, M, I, A. And then luckily we just have the thumb to prepare to the new string. That'll help with the tricky combination. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4. Prepare. Then at the beginning again. So just in summary, the first thing you want is a very stable position. You want the weight of the right hand to be enough to kind of keep the guitar in place against the 3 points of contact, the left leg, the right leg, and then the sternum. And then the weight of the right arm should be enough to secure that thing, so we never use our left hand to aid in the security of the instrument. That is one of the worst things you can do right off the bat. Use the rest strokes at the beginning, really following through. Remember the bent tip, kind of like painting good tone on the string, like a paintbrush. Real straight fingers, big knuckle moving. Work those until you get a really good full sound out of the guitar, and that can really stick in your ear. That way when you learn the free stroke and you work the free stroke, you're kind of shooting for the target of the tone of the rest stroke. And the same thing with that kind of third stroke. Use that kind of as a training wheels for the free stroke, and then go back to the rest or the free stroke, and alternate between those 3 types of strokes to kind of get some evening out. Really work hard on evening out the tone. The tone is everything on the classical guitar. If tone wasn't so important on the classical guitar, You could just play everything on like an electric guitar or a steel string guitar. But the thing about the nylon string guitars, it has this beautiful kind of blossom and articulation and carrying sound. The sustain is beautiful. And then when we get the free strokes down, start to work through these arpeggio examples. There's 10 of those, and those will really give you a good feel for the guitar. Always remember to prepare the fingers before you play them, and then mute the strings that you played when you see the rest, and then of course to prepare the next set of strings that you need for the music. Remember, the rest aren't just instructions not to act. The rest are actually instructions to stop the sound. So if you want to take those quite literally, you can. I wasn't doing that as much. I was just focused on planting the fingers back on the strings that I played, and not necessarily the ones that were sympathetically vibrating. But you know, I could have used the whole bit of my thumb and muted those too if I wanted to go to that extreme. But you don't have to do that now, but you could. So think about those things, and you'll get a lot out of this lesson.